Hello and welcome to the Center Clueless podcast. Podcast takes a day-by-day approach to politics. I'm Billy Ray Brewton.
I am Erik Surwill.
Hi, everybody. It's Sunday. You know what that means. Jesus is risen.
Wait, every Sunday? That's not how it works.
Oh, every Sunday. He's exhausted at this point. Like, he's been doing so much rising over the past few thousand years. He's fucking done.
Well, listen, I do actually have a pertinent religious question in the space of your upbringing, and that is, were there snake handlers around your...
Oh, Erik, we have the most notorious snake handlers. They wrote a book about it, which was turned into a documentary called Salvation on Sand Mountain, which is where I'm
that's
from.
Right. We have talked about this.
There's a whole documentary also
that's
called
right.
Alabama Snake, which is on HBO Max. So there are snake handlers. So I live on top of Sand Mountain. Most of the snake handlers are in the valley in like Bridgeport, Stevenson, areas like that. But there are still some up on the mountain. We have a lot of Pentecostal folks.
Have you seen it? Have you been like in the room?
No, I would. My parents would have shot me dead had I gone to a snake handling church. That would have never worked.
I absolutely would have gone to watch that shit just to see if it's like what they put in the movies. But I suspect that I would make up, and I'm making up that there's some sort of insular reality there where they would notice you.
It's pretty similar. Yeah, it's a pretty similar experience from what I've heard. I don't think they're really... If you watch the documentaries where they're actually showing footage of it, it's not that far off from what you would see in a film.
Wow,
it's pretty... It's very, like, big and theatrical and stupid.
Do you think that they would notice a stranger in the room?
They would notice... Absolutely, they would notice a stranger. They know every... Pentecostal churches don't just get new parishioners... It's not a normal thing for a Pentecostal church to just have someone be like, you know what? I've decided I want to start handling snakes now.
Right.
It's something, either your family is involved with it or you're there for some other like connective reason. You're not just there on a whim.
Right. So they would notice a stranger in the room. That's why, because I'm like, dude,
Erik,
we gotta go do that shit.
You're talking about church right now. There's a restaurant in the town I'm from called Roisin. I have been in that restaurant before. It's a packed restaurant. And someone will walk through the door that no one knows, and it just goes quiet. And everybody's just staring, waiting to figure out who this person is. Do I need to get my gun? So yeah, they would notice. They would notice. I think that's a fair assessment.
I cannot believe that space produced you. To be clear, that space, that context of Sand Mountain, and everything that, I had forgotten about. You told me this story years and years ago. I remember it now. Dude, how did you even show up out of that space? It's so crazy to me that you were even possible to come out of there.
The only secret I can give you to coming unspoiled out of that hellhole is books and movies.
Right.
Learning and trying not to stay in ignorant shit for my entire life.
Right.
Because, I knew from an early age I wanted to get the hell out of there. Not because I don't love it, because I really do love it. But I also was like, I can't do anything I want to do living in this place.
Right. And I know that probably you also realizing some of your preferences, sexual preferences,
how dare
probably
you?
Ran against the grain there a little bit, right? You know what I mean? Seriously.
Yes.
Like in the space of accepting yourself, you would probably have to challenge some of the more assumed boundaries that were in that place at the time you grew up, right?
Look, let's be clear. My graduating class was like 70 people. At the time, I would have bet you money that I was the only queer person there. Now, in hindsight, there were like 8 of us.
Right.
And
which tracks at about 10%.
And of course, looking back now, I'm like, well, you should have figured it out, you fucking idiot. You should have known. But yeah.
Your notoriously poor gaydar once again rears its head.
Yes, my gaydar is either like it's only one of 2 levels. It is either like absolute laser perfect, or it is absolutely completely unfunctional.
Yeah, like numb. Yeah.
There's no middle ground. Like there was this is my last tangent on this. There was a guy that I used to have a crush on back in Birmingham. A little bit younger than me, but I had a big crush on him. And we ended up moving to LA around the same time. And about that time, he came out of the closet as gay. And I was so shocked and so like, how? How in the world is this possible? I would have never guessed in a million years. Everybody else was like, really? I knew it from like day one. And then I started thinking back and I was like, Yeah, I guess you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into some actual, well, quote unquote, political discourse. The first thing that we're going to do today is we're going to start off with, just something that's just sweeping the nation. Cancel corner.
Yeah.
Every day I walk down the street and someone's like, oh, cancel corner. It just happens to me 20 times a day.
Sure.
So, Erik, you have this week's cancel corner more ingrained than I do. So why don't you talk to us about it, and then I'll just rant like an idiot.
Right. I mean, I started seeing posts about it on Twitter. It was about an artist. What's funny is,
Erik, do you mean X?
Oh yeah, X. Sorry. The posting service formerly known as Twitter.
That's right.
And it was funny is I couldn't pronounce her name, but I had to actually look that up. It's Roisin Murphy. Okay. And she's an alternative rock artist. I went ahead and listened to her stuff. By the way, amazing vocalist, sort of wrapped in this quirky, more modern music. Like as a 53-year-old guy, I'm probably not listening to her stuff unless it comes up in a news article like this. But
yeah, you're not listening to her unless she does a duet with Garth Brooks.
It's been so apparently. In a private Facebook group where there was a discussion about Graham Linehan. Graham Linehan is a comedy writer, but he's mostly known in Britain right now because he is a virulent anti-transgender sort of.
Do we use the word TERF for this one?
I mean, I see. It's funny because her conversation was about being called a TERF. He is a dude, he's a guy that's so committed to be anti-transgender everything that he even broke up his relationship with his wife over it. That being said, so she's in this thread discussing him. Nobody's posted that thread. And she says, please don't call me a TERF. Please don't keep using that word against women. I beg you, but puberty blockers are fucked. Absolutely desolate, big pharma laughing all the way to the bank. Little mixed up kids are vulnerable and need to be protected. That's just true. So that was the statement. She was immediately and quickly outed by actually several trans rights activists, or let's be clear, some of them were journalists masquerading, or maybe activists masquerading as journalists, whatever, and. She's taken a hit. Her record label, Ninja Tune, immediately ceased all promotion for her new album coming up. This album she's got coming up called Hit Parade, and this record company, Ninja Tune, and as well as she's now had 2 gigs canceled in London. She went ahead and she posted an apology, and then said that she was going to, and then by the way, ran from social media at that point. There are absolutely people calling for her head still. Her record company is now donating their proceeds of all of their profits of her album to, groups that fight transgender hate. And I'm gonna try not to put quotes around that because I don't think that what she said was hateful. I think that what she said is a concern for children. There's space in there for her to still advocate for transgendered individuals. But as you and I have discussed before, there's where the breakdown is ultimately happening is providing gender affirming chemicals or surgery to children. That's going to be where this battle is going to be fought. And to be fair, I assert that's where the line's ultimately going to be drawn. Once all of this garbage settles, you're going to see people at 18, when they become adults, able to engage in whatever gender-affirming care they choose to. I'm telling you now, nobody's going to be like, "Oh yeah, don't tell me that my daughter or son are having these feelings," and go ahead and start providing them drugs and then maybe surgery before they're 18. Nobody's going to say yes to that. That's apparent. At least most people aren't. Some do, obviously, but. And what's sad is she's just another person that's a really probably a very big advocate for transgender rights and freedom outside of children doing these things to themselves. It's the purity test once again gone awry.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of an acronym for these fucking douchebag trans activists, like TERF. Like they like to throw TERF around so much. Like, what's a good acronym for them?
Well, you know what's funny is that they just get called TRAs, right? Trans rights activists. And
Well, yeah, but that's not sufficient.
Well, what's sad about it is that it's still there are people who advocate for the rights of transgendered individuals who aren't virulent, angry, narcissistic fruit bags, right? And that's the difference here. If you're out there spitting on people, throwing things at people, you've lost this. You're off script. You've lost your mind on this. That's not how things get handled in this society. Although obviously that is how things get handled sometimes. Tar and feathering, all of that is not a new game, right?
No, not at all.
Shaming is as old as human society, I guess.
Well, it gets really frustrating. I had a situation in my office this week, and for folks know, it's high intrigue here in Seattle. But I was with a coworker, and we were talking about we had been in discussions with Netflix about screening their new film Naiad, which is about Diane Naiad, who is the swimmer who swam from was it Florida to Cuba or something like that. And she's a lesbian, and it's a big high profile film. But then almost immediately, as soon as the trailer dropped, all of these TRAs started coming out because she had said at one point that she was concerned about trans women competing in professional swimming and competing there. And she just started getting thrown under the bus, and people are like, oh, she's a TERF, she's a TERF, she's a TERF. Right. And so I was sitting in the office and I mentioned it, and I was like, so, from a political standpoint, maybe it's good we're not screening it. And then my coworker was like, yeah, she's a TERF. And I was like, no, I don't think she's a TERF. Like, she's not anti-trans. She just has one issue where she has concerns. That doesn't make her a TERF. And then my coworker, we got into this back and forth. She was like, no, that makes her a TERF. And I'm like, what? Like, how? In what world does this make sense? Like, in what world does it make sense? Because it's so mind-boggling to me that people can't see nuance in this area that it actually starts turning me less in favor of them. Like, honestly, that's what it does. Like, when I see a group that is completely unwilling to see the nuance in their own situation, that doesn't make me want to support that group more. It makes it just doesn't. And I'm sure, and I'm someone in a position where, like, I imagine how other people feel. Like, I mean, when they're having to deal with it, I'm sure it's a lot more severe and a lot worse. I don't understand that as a messaging ploy, as a political ploy, as a changing hearts and minds ploy. Like, I don't understand how that is successful in any way, shape, or form.
Well, because I think part of the problem here is there are many people in the transgendered rights advocacy space. They're not just talking about transgendered rights. They're gender advocates. They're the new gender advocate that wants to remove that your personal expression is the only thing that matters over anything, including biology. Yeah. And as part of that, they're willing to engage in the anti-science conversation that men and women are physically different enough for there needing to be different biological spaces within sports. But anybody that you want to talk to that's had to compete with a larger male, there are mixed martial arts fighters. There's a woman that I can't remember her name, black woman, pretty good fighter. She said she'd never been hit so hard in her life when she got hit by a transgendered female, and it broke her orbital, crushed her face, right? Yeah. And that was what set off a guy like Joe Rogan. That's why he was so angry about it so early, because as a guy that's in that space, that is a journalist in that space, and he really is in mixed martial arts. That's how it started. And then you got people like Riley Gaines, the swimmer, who this week was attacked by Oberman. Keith Olbermann went nuts. Said, just admit you sucked at swimming. This is a person with like over 20 awards in swimming. Yeah. Like, so he's also lost his mind. Like, Oberman's one of the sort of dudes that have lost their mind and with a lot of these things. And I think that that's part of the problem, is that this has been pulled into the political space. You're only allowed to have one of two feelings towards the transgendered conversation, and that is either 100% support and you maintain your position on the left, or even one or two little things off, meaning your full support for transition and for individuals after they turn 18, and full support for every part of participation in society, except for sports where biology matters. You do those two things, and now you're a TERF, a fascist. And that's what you're seeing is a part of this is you got the anarchist / the anarcho-communist left loves to ride. And in fact, many of the on-the-ground soldiers are anarcho-communists, right? They're anarchists, communists, or some combination of that. And their whole game is to tear society down entirely.
Yeah.
Economically, through norms and morals and all of that. And so, okay, and I think that that's part of the problem is so many of the more virulent trans rights activists are actually anarcho-communists. They're I'm not going to sit here and call them Antifa, right? But they are anarchists and communists, and they come from that oppressor-oppressed worldview, right? That's what it's about.
Yeah. I had so you sent me this video.
Sorry. And we didn't have to talk about it, but I sent it to you because it was so good.
Erik sent it to me, and I just want to be clear here. Like, I know people probably the people who listen to this podcast regularly are like, boy, y'all do spend a lot of time talking about trans issues.
Yeah.
And I do intentionally because I am in a world where it matters on a daily basis, right? I live in Seattle, a very progressive city. I work for an organization that is just as much about serving the trans community as it is any other member of the queer community. And so it is an important issue to me, and because I deal with it on a day-to-day basis here. And I do think it's a pretty defining issue of the moment right now. So that's why you hear us talking about it, because it's become this sort of defining issue. But so Erik sent me this video a couple days ago, and it was this random person on social media filming themselves having a complete hysterical meltdown. Like there's nothing else you can call it. Like a complete hysterical come apart. Why was she having this come apart, Erik?
She was having the come apart because when she went up to the gay bartender in a gay bar and asked for drinks, he said, "What would you two ladies like to have?" That's what he said. And they began to, melt down about that because that wasn't their pronoun choice. And then, of course, look, I don't, honestly, I found it difficult to keep watching that. It's so bad, right?
I know.
It's so, and that's, I think that's part of the mess here also, is that many people who are obviously narcissistic, they're the ones seeking attention on social media around these issues. It's not like there aren't other people who don't have conversations around their pronouns or around gender in general that don't navigate things a little bit more calmly and in a more relaxed. They're not wounded by it. Right? I have people in my life who I will not name because I don't want them to get in trouble for knowing me, who will talk to me about things, people where I use, of course, the proper pronouns for them, ones that they've requested. And they spend most of their time because they realize they're at a time where these norms are changing. Look, there's a person that I know, and they said to me that they expect to be navigating this for the rest of their life because it's such a major change to society.
Sure.
Right? Like all of society is oriented around the sexual binary, and it is. In fact, so many of the previous conversations where rights were talking, when it comes to patriarchy, when it comes to women's rights, this is, of course, born of the realities of differences between biological sexes physically. So to be fair, let's be honest, the way patriarchy was upheld for thousands of years was men were stronger and would beat people into submission. Okay?
Yeah.
Thus, that sexual binary was just forced on people. And this person has said to me, they've said that they expect to be correcting people the rest of their lives. And so
Well,
I guess that's what I get. The people that were in the woman that was the person, the individual that was in that video, I just misgendered her. It's inappropriate. They said that they were upset, right? That they and then they proceed to have this freak. See, it's difficult for me to honor it when they're nutcases. That she was nutty. She was out of her mind. They were out of their mind. They were nutty. They were out of their mind. And to me, honestly, that felt honestly, I felt that was performative. That was.
It did feel performative, but it also felt like someone with an absolute mental condition.
Right. And
I mean, like absolute mental condition, because I had a similar thing happen to me. So you sent me that video like the day after. I was sitting at this, I went to do some work at a coffee shop nearby. And there were these two folks who were there. There were two trans folks. And being honest, the trans man who was there was pretty fucking hot. Just gonna objectify somebody right there.
There you go.
But the person they were with was like crying, not like hysterical like that video, but they were crying and they were upset. And let's be clear, I was eavesdropping. It's a small coffee shop. You can't help but overhear other people's conversations.
Okay.
And so I overheard, and they were talking, and I realized what they were talking about is there's a coffee shop on Capitol Hill where I live called Kaladi Brothers. It's an Alaskan coffee shop. It's the only one that's not in Alaska. And it's shutting down. They're closing up shop and they're moving.
Right.
And it's known very much as a trans-friendly coffee shop. That's where a lot of trans people go. I used to have a lot of meetings there. And they were crying about it. And I was listening to what they were saying. And they were like, there's no safe place for us to go. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, you're in a safe place right now.
Right.
Like, you're in like the most progressive area in one of the most progressive cities, sitting at a coffee shop. The person who just served you is trans.
Right.
You're trans.
Right.
You're sitting here with your trans friend. The only non-trans person there is me, and I'm wearing a fucking rainbow flag shirt at the time. Where are you not safe at?
Yeah.
And like really? Like, I don't look, everybody's emotional about different things. I'd hate to chastise somebody for that. They might have loved that place, could have had friends who worked there. Who knows? There's a million reasons why they could have been upset. But it sounded like they were upset because, there are just no places for trans people to go. Like, I kid you not, I can leave my house now and walk to our office and I'll pass a minimum 10 trans people.
Right.
No joke.
Right.
Like, the heaviest condensed population of trans people in the country. It's part of what makes this area so amazing. And it's like, to do the whole, like, I don't feel safe when you're in, like, quite literally the safest coffee place, probably safer than the one you're crying about.
Right.
Like, I just don't understand that. Like, I understand trans people are having it rough right now. I really do. Like, all the legislation, all this other stuff. Like, I get it. It's a hard time to be a trans person. I get that. I mean, I get that as much as I can without being a trans person.
Right.
But, like, it's stuff like that doesn't help.
Right. And
it just doesn't help.
The lack of resilience there. And I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The lack of resilience. The lack of resilience, it, to me, belies something else. Right? Like, I'm like, again, to me, what's damaged there is their personal story that they're telling themselves. Because, like, what happened is the place is closing down. That's what happened. Place is closing down. There's nothing else in that story.
No.
Except for what's happening.
It's not shutting down because it was a trans-friendly place. It's not shutting down for any other reason than they just weren't making enough money to keep it open.
Right. And then so the person upset, what was their orientation? So I used the appropriate.
It was a trans woman.
Right. So it's she. So she then overlays this story of danger, of pain, of pain, the story of not being safe, essentially roiling herself up into this, this agitation. And that agitation, when applied to other people, looks just off. You're just like, you look a little crazy about this, kind of like that. And I don't get it. You know what I mean?
I don't get it either. And look, I hold grace for the fact that I don't get a lot of this. I don't. And some of it I think is because it's ridiculous. Some of it is I think because I just am not in a place to get it yet. I accept that. Like some of it I don't, some of it I do think is me reacting in like a way that maybe I shouldn't be reacting, but most of it is me observing crazy behavior and calling it what it is. And it was just so funny that you sent me that video the day after that, because I was like, it's a pandemic of insanity right now. Like, it's happening everywhere. And like, I guess part of it for me, and I've had this discussion on here before, is just like, I think part of the reason I don't understand it is because my sexuality is not a defining part of who I am. Like, I am so many other things before I'm a gay man.
Right.
Like I am a son. I am a brother. I am a best friend. I am a friend. I am a writer. I am a programmer. I am a film festival director. Like I'm a Southerner. I'm all of these things before I'm a queer person. I do not choose to let that define me.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to understand other people who choose to let their sexuality like drive every decision they make.
Yeah, I find that odd too. And I don't know why, and not even drive every other decision, but it's as if they have they have a canopy of things that they can choose from to discuss, to have trip outs over, what are their priorities? And it is weird to see so many people who have that at the very top of the priority is their sexuality. Now, the argument I've heard in that space is, well, that's because there are fascists out there trying to take away our ability to express ourselves that are going to make this illegal. I'm telling you now, there's nothing ever that's going to happen in the United States where being transgendered is going to become illegal. That's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's these assholes were out on the street in Florida yesterday. You had the racist assholes, red shirts. They were waving the swastika, and it was the Goyim Defense League and some other of these douchebags. These are douchebags. They're never going to take. It's never going to take hold. It's never going to catch fire. It's been a joke since back in the day when Howard Stern used to have that idiot racist on his show, and then even before that, when you had the Nazis fighting for the right to back when the ACLU fought for their right to have parades in various towns. The fact is this: most people in America don't care about people expressing their transgendered space. They don't care. They just don't. There's a lot of, I think, pushback against neo-pronouns. Sure. There's some pushback. In fact, I know a lot of pushback against biological men competing in biological women's sports. Yeah. Fine. And the biggest pushback, meaning the most sort of normie pushback you're going to see, is against people allowing children to be using drugs and surgery to affirm their gender. Outside of those things, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I promise you, nobody. Now, I'm not saying there are people that aren't going to say terrible things, but as a guy, for instance, that's 100 pounds overweight, there are people still talking about my fat ass, right? But it is what it is, right? Yeah. People are going to have negative things to say about you in almost any case. Rich people get heat. Attractive people get heat. Talk to an attractive woman, and the difficulty, a smart, attractive woman in IT, it's one of the most difficult positions to have because everybody wants to assume that you got your position because of your looks. When in reality, in IT, many people refuse to hire attractive women. So even an attractive, smart woman worth 6 figures in the IT industry is having difficulty. Okay. So let's not pretend that most of us all don't experience some level of difficulty with how other people treat us in our lives. And I think that you just got to start getting used to that. And that's that resilience conversation again,
Yeah. Well, we're going to close that conversation for now. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and get a little more political, y'all. So stick around. We'll be right back. We are back with the second half of the Center Clueless podcast. We're going to dive into some political waters now. Actually, maybe waters isn't the best use of the word, considering what we're talking about. My apologies. But we're going all the way down to America's dangling participle, Florida.
Let's just crash into this issue like a storm, Billy, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Florida, of course, was slammed by hurricane. What was it? I get lost on these names.
Was it Ida? Shit.
Look at that.
Something with an I. Something with an I. I don't know. Like the hurricane names, I just evade me. There are so many. Hurricane Ephraim. No, I don't know. Eric's looking up the name of this goddamn hurricane.
What? It's Idalia.
Idalia. Okay,
yeah.
What a dumb name. Okay, so Idalia, of course, slammed into Florida, and they're in like full disaster mode there. And it does bring up a conversation about someone that we give a fair amount of guff to on this podcast, which is Ron DeSantis.
Oh, come on.
The meme that keeps on giving. And but there is a conversation to be had that despite what you feel about the man, and we feel a lot, dude knows how to manage a crisis.
Right. Yeah. And not only knows how to manage a crisis, but the most likable Ron DeSantis you're going to see is Ron DeSantis responding to a crisis. And I would assert that that's really how he should just let it roll like that all the time instead of trying to force or contort his face into a smiley smile. He's not that guy. He's not smiley DeSantis. He's Ron DeSantis. And he looked like, look, you would want a governor just like him in the middle of a hurricane, just like he acted, just like he had it go down this last week. It was almost flawless. I'm not saying that there weren't problems there, right? But it's a hurricane. There's going to be problems. In the end, his administration, the people he's put into place to handle these issues, they get it done. And interestingly, his administration also communicated with and participated with the Biden administration in the proper calling up and an application of federal help, assistance, and funding. That's also important here. But yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy how much lack of credit he gets from the left, the far left, right, on this.
Yeah.
And it's apparent to this centrist that he does a good job, at least at this. And maybe Biden would be in a lot of trouble. Maybe Trump would be in a lot of trouble if this is what he led with.
Yeah. I mean, that's the problem, right? Is like he's not even close to leading with that. He leads with all the fakeness he can muster,
right?
Because he thinks that's what's going to win him the election. When it's the exact opposite that could,
right?
Could
and it makes him look dumb because like he put up the Stop Woke Act, which was then immediately gutted in October of 2022, almost a year ago. So nobody even knows that, by the way. Stop Woke Act hits, cut in half, right? Because he put up something that was unconstitutional. And so all of his social battles, all of the stuff that he's been using in the social arena to try to get cachet with the conservative space, it's a flop for him, and he should just back off of it.
Yeah, it was interesting to watching him during all this, and because it was a noticeably different Ron DeSantis, and like the intensity level was like always there. Like I didn't, because I watched several of his like pressers and stuff during this whole period. It was like, dude was constantly on point. Like he wasn't dodging questions like he did in the debate. Like he had answers to the questions, like because he had confidence in his infrastructure. Right. Like it was impressive. I'll give him. Look, I'll give someone credit where credit is due. Like it was impressive. Look, I'll give Giuliani credit that he handled 9/11 pretty well. He's still a fucking nut job now, but he handled it well. Like I'll give people credit where credit is due. And I agree with you. It would be a totally different race, I think, if this was the Ron DeSantis we're seeing, but it's not the Ron DeSantis we're ever going to see.
Right.
And then, of course, this feeds into like, even when Ron DeSantis is being genuine, I can't tell if his refusal to meet Biden was political or not.
I think it was absolutely political. And again,
I do too. But his excuse was right. Like we can't have the security details messing up the recovery efforts. It's like, come on, dude. And like the best thing was that Biden knows it's bullshit too, because like Biden at his press conference, was like, said very nice things about Ron DeSantis, but then they asked him, was like, well, do you think that's true? And he was like, do you? That was I was like, do you?
Right? Yeah, right. I mean, I'm starting to see. I also am starting to see, and this is I think a bigger conversation. This is the Biden that Biden's going to run for the next election. He's going to run He's not even going to respond to the crazy stuff. And when he's directly questioned about it, he's going to give answers like that. Because it's like, come on. The reality is that Ron DeSantis could have set himself apart by standing with Biden during a crisis and looked like an American. Like, I mean, but it may be that Ron doesn't have that courage. I feel odd saying he's not courageous enough. So maybe, and I would also think that this is a big part of it. I think that he's listening again and once again to his consultants too much. Yeah, he's listening to the newsmakers under him. You know,
well, what he's also probably listening to is he's probably listening to the last debate that he was just in, where Vivek Ramaswamy still years later went after Chris Christie for shaking Obama's hand.
Right.
After the devastation in New Jersey. And it was like, people are still going after him like 10 years later, like however, like so many years later. He probably heard that. He's like, I'm not getting into that mess.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's all dumb, right? Like, it's all completely ridiculous that people are reacting in any way, shape, or form that way. Like, okay, so yeah, the president comes, like, you may not agree with him, but there used to be a time in this country where we at least had respect for the office.
Right.
Like, this is the office that Ron DeSantis conceivably wants to hold. Does he want people to not shake his hand? To not come and meet him?
Right.
Because that's the precedent that you're carrying on here, is that it's got to be so nasty that we can't have any respect for the office. We can't have any respect for any decency in any human being. It has to be all binary.
Yeah, I think it's, to be fair, I'm somewhat speechless on it, because I just want to see people lead and lead in a way that has civility, honesty, integrity, scientific, what's the word I'm looking for? Literacy as a basis to it. And he's almost there. And in fact, there's 100% there when he's dealing with these issues. But then these opportunities where he could have extended that outwards.
Yeah.
Dude, so many people would have found that I assert that would be healing to the society in America to show that. And I just hope that he's able to stand on his own two legs one day and actually do that, right? Because there is a very large contingent of people in the middle, much like myself, that's all I want to see. There are debates that can be had about the differences between conservative thought and liberal thought in progressive thought. Let's just call it progressive thought in the United States. And I'd rather have those discussions. I'd rather discuss why taxation is important, especially when it goes to reducing the suffering of fellow Americans. But instead, we turn it into whatever that mess is. And I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't. He missed an opportunity there for sure. But, talking about Biden, segueing into this a bit from there, we were talking earlier about Biden's refusal to really even talk about Trump.
Yeah.
And, there are two schools of thought on this. There are some people that think that's kind of a brilliant tactic because he's not giving any weight to it. And by doing so, and by doing those answers like, well, what do you think? Like, he's basically creating this idea of like, it's obvious that this is insanity. So A, why would I comment on it? And B, why would you not already know that it's insanity?
Right.
And like, I think that's actually a good tactic, right? I think that's the way to go. Like, every time I hear Biden not talk about Trump, I get excited because you're taking away his power.
Yeah, he's not even giving Trump airtime. He's not giving Trump airtime. And the fact is, I think it's so. I'm on the side of where I think this is smart. Trump and the Trumpian mess around the 91 criminal charges, all that mess that's just reverberating. How do you say the word? Reverberating through the news right now, on the right at least.
Yeah.
And all of the craziness that's coming up about it. I think that by not being drawn into it, it's to be fair, you're seeing this. Anybody talking about Hunter right now? Sure, there are people still trying to push it, but it went away. What did it take? 2 weeks? 3 weeks?
Yeah.
And I think this is exactly how he beat everybody else in the field when he became president. And this is going to be how he's going to beat Trump. Is he's just not going to he's not going to spend any amount of time on this. None. And I think that once again, whoever's running his admin, whoever's in the background doing all this, it's weird because I'm not giving him credit for it. Whoever's working with him doing a great job because one of them looks like an adult. Everybody else looks crazy. Right now, Biden looks like an adult. And that's crazy right now because, look, on the far right, that's not true. On the far right,
sure,
you got, MTG talking about articles of impeachment, which will never happen because there are Republicans. There are Republicans in House seats that are razor thin margins.
Yeah.
And they're already fighting the abortion fight, right? Now they got to fight some other crazy shit. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen.
Yep.
No, not going to happen. And yeah, I mean, Biden, I think, is being the adult in the room. It's going to be interesting to see what the debate looks like.
You think Biden's going to even debate?
I mean, that's the question, right?
I don't think he's going to debate right now.
And I don't know what the smart play is, frankly, right? Like, I don't know if he should or shouldn't at the moment. I think it would be interesting for them to debate, but I also think it would have to go very differently than their last debates went. And I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's hard to know what the smart move is at this juncture because, Biden is pretty strong right now, but we've seen the hiccups. Like, we know they're there, right? And but then again, like, Trump ain't all there either. Like, I've heard some of these tangents that motherfucker goes on in the middle of these interviews. Like, his is a different kind of instability, but it's there too.
Right.
And so I almost feel like it would just be embarrassing to watch both of them debate each other. Like, I don't know that anything good comes out of it. You're watching two old men kind of stumble and stammer their way at each other.
Right. And really what's going to happen in a debate is, at best, you're going to have everybody on the left saying that Biden won.
Yeah.
You're going to have everybody on the right saying Trump won. And then the people in the middle are going to fall according to what Biden promotes versus what Trump promotes, right? Yeah. Trump likely would attack Biden on his administration's support for some of the social, the non-policy stuff that the right's going after the left for. And by the way, may be able to pin Biden on a lot of things. Look, parental rights with their children, that's not performing well for Democrats. And Trump could probably pin him down on that. That would be terrible for Biden because Biden would have
It also sounds like something Trump wouldn't even think to mention, though.
I think he already has at least once. And that's why I'm concerned that so you're right. Likely Trump just goes in there and screws it up, right? Because he's too crazy now. But if a sobered up Trump got in there and was able just to drop a couple of easy ones on Biden, Biden may take hits. That being said, we have yet to see Trump fighting four different legal battles while trying to. And I think he snaps. I think he snaps during this time because one of those is federal, and federal cases are hard to fight as a defendant. The criminal stuff going on in Georgia is going to be a ringer for him.
Yeah.
The New York stuff, I don't think is going to do shit. And then if the other federal one is, of course, the Docs case, and he's clearly in trouble in that case.
Yeah.
The guy that stopped using his lawyer immediately recanted everything he said and is now using one of the public defenders in the federal system. That's the nail in the coffin, sitting with the hammer ready to be pounded into. I think Trump is going to get jail time for sure in the Docs case. I'm reasonably sure he's going to get jail time in the Georgia case. And the January 6th stuff, if that sticks as well, if Jack Smith turns out to be the smart motherfucker that he looks to be, you're looking at a guy that's going to be, how's he going to keep it together? You know what I mean? I don't know. He's very laser focused on one thing. Excuse me. That's Trump's game, right? He's really good on one. And now he's got at least three other very important things aside from being the presidential candidate.
All he cares about right now is getting reelected so he can fucking pardon himself. That's all he cares about.
Right, on the federal charges. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's all he cares about.
Which, by the way, there's a very, very, all of the most respected constitutional law, like all the people at Brookings, all of them, all of the sort of sideliners, Ken White, got those guys too. They all agree that he doesn't have the right to pardon himself. That's not
I don't think he does. And it'll go to the Supreme Court, and I bet they'll rule the same way.
Right. They'll say he doesn't have a right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I should bet with my progressive friends about that so I can gloat as the terrible conservative court once again upholds the Constitution properly.
Well, kind of to close out with the conversation, we talked earlier about obviously everything that's going on in Florida, but there's stuff going on everywhere, right? Like, you know, there are wildfires in Canada. There have been huge tornado season in the South, and then thousands and thousands of dummies stuck at Burning Man.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I say that jokingly, like, I know I have friends who go to Burning Man. I'm glad it's their thing. It's always been something that I just find to be obnoxious. So I always make fun of it, but I get that it holds a special place for a lot of people. So I won't denigrate it, but bet they're wishing they didn't go right about now.
Yeah, but you know what's funny is, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I think that this actually has, because at first I was like, man, didn't this happen before? And then I started digging it up, and it sure did. In '96, they had a similar situation. And at that time, nobody talked about it. I mean, people talked about it, but there really wasn't any large news stories about it. I think that everything with this particular Burning Man, starting with, by the way, the beginning of Burning Man was the entire line of people going into Burning Man was stopped by these by the ecological protesters, and then there's the video of the video of the rangers, right? You know, essentially the sheriffs, the Indian sheriffs ramming through their barricades. So that's what started it, right? Then they have the party, and I actually, as a guy that used to be in the rave scene in LA, used to work the door, a lot of clubs in LA. Primarily a club called Family in LA for years. Love that scene. Know a lot of burners. A lot of people still telling me I should go now. There are a lot of very successful people that use that space as a way to blow off steam that one time a year. You know, doctors who told me that it saved their lives, that it was a place where they finally learned to distress. I find it sad that these people are now going to eat shit. But the other thing is, I don't think many people are suffering there because there was people saying, "Oh, the shower services are failing." Well, there are no shower services ever there, so it was a fake story. So you're starting to see people like amping up these like weirdo fake stories about what's going on there, when in reality, most people bring extra food. No, let's be clear. Almost everybody brings extra food. Almost everybody brings extra water. The only thing they're probably having difficulty with is bathrooms, right? And that's dangerous. But I'm sure that everybody's going to come out of there just fine. But let's be clear.
They can helicopter in porta potties.
Right. Which, by the way,
it's not like they're stuck in a place where there's no human access.
Right. And it's funny because someone did that. Someone I don't know their name, and I apologize. They had done a whole story where they were putting up maps about how close. There's no chance people are going to die. If there's an emergency extraction needed, just like you said, helicopters can fly in there. Yes, it's raining. So what? But it is funny that. To me, it's funny that it's become such a news story, right?
Yeah.
Like people are looking to people are looking.
Because there's nothing else to report on. People are digging for shit. Yeah. How about this? Are we excited about the return of Firefest?
Wait. No. There's no way.
That guy, Billy McFarland, has already announced that Firefest 2 is happening, and it's not a joke.
There's no way.
Billy
McFarland is selling tickets for a relaunch. What?
Yep. This is happening.
He was convicted for that.
I know.
Oh.
I'm aware. But I guess he was like, we're going to make this dream a reality finally. Me and Ja are going to make this happen.
Do you think about the actual chutzpah you got to have? There's been,
right?
Isn't it two 2 Netflix documentaries, not one.
Well, one Netflix documentary and one Hulu documentary.
Sorry, so it was a Hulu doc. Okay, sorry. But
yeah,
2 documentaries on 2 separate streaming services, none of which made you look like a nice guy before. All of which showcased not only your deception, but the outcome of your deception.
Yeah.
You know, the terribleness that some of these people,
the people's lives you ruined,
the money you took from people. It is. I didn't know that. I can't freaking believe that. That's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Why do I assume that McFarland probably supports Trump?
No, that's not fair.
I don't know. I feel like he probably supports Trump. I got that feeling. Yeah, it's happening. Should I get us tickets, or do you want to handle it?
I am not going ever. I'm never.
But let's just be good. Isn't there a part of you that would love to go just for like a day to see what the fuck it is?
By the way, you know what's so funny is when you Google his name, Billy McFarland, he shows up in Wikipedia because there's a Billy McFarland politician, right, in Tennessee, and so he's Billy McFarland fraudster on Wikipedia.
I'm just saying that his first line is, "It is American con artist and convicted felon."
I'm trying to find, but I don't see. I don't think that he's actually political. I think if anything, he wrapped himself in sort of the liberal accoutrement, right? But I don't think that he's even political. I think he's just he's apolitical, right? He's a sociopath. Wow. Look, okay, so my opinion is
he's probably about to go back to jail for another concert.
Well, right, and who's going to buy that? Who's going to buy any of it? I don't know. Whatever.
There are people who will. There are absolutely people who will. There are people, because the tickets for this one, it appears, are only $495.
Where is it supposed to be?
$499. They don't have a venue, a date, or any musical act set yet. He went out and said that they were going to put the first 100 tickets on sale he mentioned it on TikTok for $499. And this was in August of this year. This was just last month, and but has nothing booked. Right, and he's pre-selling tickets, so he can book shit.
Yeah, but I mean, what's crazy is this: if you're looking at like a 2-day VIP ticket to Zombieland Apocalypse, right, which is an Insomniac item, you're looking at $359. Okay, and if there's one thing about Pasquale, the guy that runs Insomniac, he knows how to throw a party. There's no way Billy McFarland's ever going to do what that guy does, because that guy's legit, right?
Yeah.
And there were a lot of Pasquale haters in LA for years. He's someone that I personally knew for a while. He threw his club Insomniac in the days that I was involved. To be fair, that guy's a motherfucker, knows what he's doing, and has done really good events, even in the face of insanity. This guy, and you know what's funny is McFarland has none of that. Like when you see I didn't watch the Hulu one all the way through. I did watch the Netflix film about the Fire Festival all the way through. What shines through for me is that Billy McFarland is just a big picture fraudster. He doesn't even know how to get into the details. He just sells air, and it's like, I'd be more impressed if he was somehow stealing everybody's money to buy crypto at the end of a well-delivered event. But no, he's just a douchebag who makes other promoters look like douchebags. But I can't. I'm so shocked by that. I'm probably going to sit and read about this for an hour after we get done here. Jesus.
Yeah, it's going to be something. I mean, I'm certainly not going to go either, but I look forward to the documentary sequel, which chronicles his return to prison for selling tickets for almost $500 when nothing is booked. It's clearly never going to happen.
Here it is. In October 2022, McFarland teased a video on TikTok and YouTube Shorts that he was planning a new business venture called PYRT. In an interview with Vanity Fair, he described it as a virtual, immersive, decentralized reality. The magazine described it as Fire Festival Light without the capacity issues. Man, dude.
Wonderful. He's also charging $499 for the first 100 tickets. That's only going to earn him about $50,000. Who are you going to book for that?
What venue are you going to book for that? What infrastructure are you going to put together for that? Part of the
what musical acts are you going to book for that?
Part of the ways Pasquale makes money at Insomniac is he's using the same vendors over and over, so they have a whole business built behind supporting him. And he's built that up over years, which is why he's able to charge what he does. So if he was even to try to deliver the same thing that Pasquale was delivering, he'd probably have to do it between $100 and $300 more a ticket anyways. And it's like,
yeah.
And by the way, if you're successful, if you always pay off your people are going to trust you. None of that exists for McFarlane.
No,
my God,
none of that. Well, that was a lovely note, I think, to end on for this week's episode. Billy McFarlane's always nice to end an episode talking about that piece of shit. Hopefully you were enlightened this week and you were like, you know what? I came into this episode dumb and I have left not dumb.
Stop.
And because that's the way we feel every week. We feel like a bunch of bumbling idiots.
Let's be honest. Last 2 weeks were like COVID fog episode.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Now I can hear a pin drop 2 blocks away.
Right.
Evidently.
Right.
Thanks for suffering through a slow news week with us. It was not the most packed news week as what happens, but it's getting closer and closer to the election. We're going to stop having slow news weeks altogether very soon, and it's going to be nothing but chaos, insanity, and bullshit, which is our favorite things to truck in. So the Center Clueless podcast is produced by Ryan Verrill. Hey, Ryan. Please visit us at centerclueless.com for more information or find us on the socials at Center Clueless. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And tell your friends, if you have any, to tune in. If you don't have any friends, that's okay. Enjoy your solitude. If you have a question, comment, or criticism, email us at centerclueless@gmail.com. And until next time, whether you're left, right, somewhere in the center, stuck on an island somewhere waiting on Ja Rule to perform, we hope you're a little less clueless, just like us.